Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Shochu'sday. What number is this? Number 74.
74.
74, almost three-quarters of the way to a century. Your hosts, Christopher Pellegrini and Stephen Lyman here, reporting live from Japan. Stephen, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Christopher. I'm doing well. I was up early. Today is my grandmother's 100th birthday,
Oh,
and she had a
this
Zoom
year's
party.
100.
Yep. She has 18 grandchildren and 28 great grandchildren. She has a tribe.
Very,
So
very good on her. I was on the I made a surprise appearance, I think, on that call last year.
for her
Uh,
99th.
yeah,
Yeah,
for her 99th, and that's fantastic that she made it to the full century.
she did.
Um,
She did.
yeah, how was it? Everybody Genki?
Yeah, no, it was fun to see a lot of family I hadn't seen in a long time. Obviously, because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to travel nearly as much, and we're kind of all scattered uh, around the globe. Until recently, one of my cousins was living in Nepal.
Huh.
He's now back in the
Okay.
States, but yeah, Nepal, Hong Kong, Japan, all over the east-west coast and that sort of thing. So it was fun to see everybody, and
Okay.
then it'll be like it's amazing how time flies. Like one of my cousins, last time I saw her son, my nephew, he was, or he's, what is he, a second cousin, I guess. He was like 7 years old, and now he's like playing middle school baseball. I'm like, wait a minute, you were
Yeah.
tiny and you didn't even like sports last time I saw you.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Life is just seems to keep on moving while we're stuck at home. My friend Dave's daughter is in junior high school now. What the hell? And and then last night, thank goodness for Zoom, because last night I was able to hop on my close friend from undergrad. We were housemates together, and she defended her PhD dissertation, and I was able to
No
watch
kidding.
it live, and support her, and that was pretty amazing. But man, now she's Dr. Price, so
Nice.
uh, yeah, just
Congratulations to
woo,
her.
crazy stuff. Yeah, well fought, well earned, and
Yeah.
a lot of respect. But as much as we begrudge all of this online communication,
Hmm.
we're better for it, I think, in some ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one of the comments, is that if it wasn't for the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have had any sort of Zoom 100th birthday party for my grandmother, and she wouldn't have seen all of her family.
That's
You know?
that's funny.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that's absolutely true. I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I got to bring this up. Maya made an apt call because we talked on the phone yesterday, and I looked like a cave bear. Did I say? Did I shave in celebration of the Swallows winning? I wouldn't say that. However, um, I was pretty happy last night when the
Yeah.
Swallows won their game in
Yeah.
Yokohama, and then Hanshin got blanked at home against Chunichi, and the Swallows won their first pennant in 6 years. Only the second
Congratulations.
one in my nearly 20 years in Japan. So I was pretty
Yeah.
stoked.
Surprised you're not wearing a Swallows jersey or something.
I was tempted. It's just a little bit too chilly today, and
Yeah.
I wanted to wear my shout out to Kagoshima dialect, Wadze binte kurai, which is basically, I'm so pissed off, is what that means. It's there on my sleeve in katakana, but this is a shirt I picked up when I was down there. Probably.
And not even familiar with that expression.
Well, there. Yeah, every time I go down there, I hear another common expression that I'm just I can never keep it at in the front of my memory in terms of how I understand it. It always kind of goes blurry, and then I have the wrong understanding. Anyway, let's see what are we up to today. We've got any booze news.
Um,
I guess the news is mostly about what you've been up to, just because that
yeah, but I mean,
involves people creating news.
I guess the big picture booze news is that David Wondrich's book just came out, right? The or is it in
is it officially available?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe it's still on pre-order, but it's
I think it
coming.
might be. It
And
is. I think it
everyone,
drops next month.
yeah, if everybody needs a nice big tome, I think that's a good choice. It's what is it? The Oxford Encyclopedia to Spirits and Cocktails.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a
And
big, heavy book.
do you know anybody that contributed to that?
I don't.
No.
No.
Somebody had to have written the shochu section.
Yeah, some idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, I helped. David approached me a number of years ago to work on the Shochu and Awamori sections for that, and it was so long ago that we were having this conversation. Well, it was 10 years ago.
Wow.
It was. Yeah, it was close to 10 years ago because I do recall that there was discussion of post earthquake, post March 11th, and they were inquiring if there was any reaction in the cocktail world, any memorial cocktails came out or anything like unifying, unity cocktail. I don't know what they were asking about. The answer pretty quickly became clear that it was no. Not really, but there was that discussion. That was really the context at the time, and things have changed so much since then. And we went through some different iterations. But yes, it's hats off to David and Noah who pushed that across the finish line. It sounds like for them, we were just talking about this. You were just saying how the pandemic, silver linings, they were forced to stay home and they had the bandwidth to tackle that. I think it's like 700 pages long or something to get that across the finish line. So many people contributed, and I'm excited to it's going to be nice to have that reference. It's not a pocket reference. I think it is.
No.
It is going to be a big ass, as you said, tome. But it's going to have a lot of key information in bite-sized chunks about most of the spirits traditions from around the world. Many that you have heard, some that you've only just, and then others that maybe you weren't truly aware of. So it's going to be useful.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to having that in my library.
That's cool. A good one. Thank you for remembering that. That's very good.
Sure.
And yeah, okay. So Chris Caldwell said, yeah, it's still on pre-order. I do remember that it's dropping at the beginning of next month, but obviously these dates can move as we've seen. Okay. All right. Let's see. Moving on to the main event. So everyone, Stephen was in Miyazaki Prefecture for from Sunday morning until late last night.
It was actually a really short trip. It was just over 36 hours. I flew in Monday morning.
Right.
Early, like first flight out of Fukuoka to Miyazaki. And that is a very, very short flight.
It is one of these.
It's like up, seatbelt signs go off. They hand you a bottle of water, seatbelt signs come on, and you go back down. And it's a little propeller plane, which is never fun, especially flying into rainy Miyazaki on Monday morning. But I want to make sure I get the name of their organization right. What is it? The Foreign Press Center of Japan? I think that's the name of the organization.
Sure.
I'm just going to double check that.
Is it the press club? Was it the FCCJ? The Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan?
No, it was FPCJ, the Foreign Press Club of Japan.
Yeah. Okay.
And we had, actually, I had done a Shochu seminar on Zoom for them a few weeks ago, and they had a larger contingent of media listening in on the Zoom. And then some of those folks joined me in Miyazaki for a very intense 36 hours of shochu education and distillery tours. So from the airport, we headed directly to our good friend Yanagita and
nice.
Yanagita Shuzo, which is really fascinating place. And then, not to jump ahead too quickly, but I just wanted to set the contrast up, is that we went from there after lunch, we went to Watanabe, also obviously in Miyazaki. And why I think that's an interesting contrast is Yanagita, for those of you who are unfamiliar, he makes a few expressions that are available in the States. Koma is his vacuum distilled barley. Then he has aokage, which is it expresses like a baisen mugi, like a roasted barley shochu, but it actually is not. He's just done a little bit of alchemy to make it express that way. It's a really, really interesting drink. And then when you can find it, the Yanagita Mizunara is a Mizunara cask aged barley shochu. And so he's actually quite well known for barley shochu. What's interesting about him is he's actually an engineer by training. And so when he took over the distillery from his father, he sort of retrofitted the distillery to make everything as efficient as possible. And he basically is a tinkerer. So he has configured his still in such a way that he can create different. He's only got one still, and he can create all these different expressions from that one machine. Just really remarkable. So, and he's very much a technical perfectionist, right? As you talk to him, it's very clear that he's very, very thoughtful and considered in every decision he makes about how he runs his shop and what he's making. And then Watanabe is on the other end of that spectrum in also, I think, one of the best ways possible. It's just a different philosophy for the distillery. Watanabe is essentially a farm distiller. He and his brother grow the potatoes. They are, I believe, starting to grow the rice. They are at least contemplating it, and they just throw open the windows. Like when they're fermenting, they want as much house yeast and ambient yeast as possible welcome to the party into the fermentation to give it their own unique sense of place. And I hadn't realized this on previous visits, but apparently there's a pickle factory not that far away.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So there's a hint of the Acetobacter that seems to make it into the fermentations and they open the windows in that direction. They're not worried about getting some vinegar notes in their shochu. I guess the koji and the yeast and everything else is strong enough to keep it at bay.
Yeah, it would sizzle it probably. But that's interesting. Yeah.
So and he actually, like, when we drove from the distillery to the farm, he actually pointed out the pickle factory with pride. He was like, "Yeah, that's where some of my funk comes from." So pretty interesting day. That was the first day. We also had so this was a collaboration event between the Foreign Press Center of Japan and the Miyazaki Prefectural government. And so it was, and the press center was focused on shochu. That was the purpose of the tour. But the Miyazaki government wanted to promote all things Miyazaki. So our lunch in between Yanagita and Watanabe was the meat campaign. So MEET. Because Miyazaki Wagyu has actually won, I think now several years in a row, best domestic beef. It's very good. So we had Miyazaki Wagyu, Miyazaki pork, and Miyazaki chicken grilled tableside for lunch, which was a really nice treat. And of course, we got a PowerPoint presentation as part of that experience.
During lunch?
Yep. Well, no, it was right at the end of lunch. We had a little conversation.
All right.
And they didn't actually have the screen and everything set up, so we just got handed the printed out PowerPoints and we followed along.
Gotcha.
But it was fun. No, it was a pretty intense first day, and then we ended up sort of doing an impromptu tasting at Watanabe. We actually went to the distillery, got the distillery tour, then went to the farm to see the potato harvest, and then we went back to the distillery where we could taste through the different expressions. And we could it was outdoors in sort of his garage bay, so it was somewhat socially distanced. Everybody could sip a little bit and try his different shochu, and I think people were quite impressed. He brought out the oyuwari, he brought out the ice and the soda, so people could really play around with it. So a little impromptu happy hour at the end of the day before we checked into the hotel. And then dinner was actually we ended up staying in Nichinan, down in southern Miyazaki, which I'd never stayed there. I've always stayed in Miyazaki City when I've been in the prefecture. And Nichinan is a fun little town. They've got an old Shoten-gai, one of these covered shopping streets, and then there weren't a lot of places open because it was a Monday night, but ended up finding a nice little dining bar that had some pretty interesting local Nichinan shochu that I'd never had. Ended up having a few of we did it as a small group. They didn't want a big dinner. So just a few of us went out and enjoyed some local food with the local shochu. Um, and then it was a 6:30 call the next morning. So it was. So
Yeah,
yesterday was
it's a
a
death
little
march.
little bit of a Bataan death march. Yeah, they and that actually started. The reason it was so early is we had to be at the local fish market by 7 a.m. for the fish auction, which
Okay.
I never actually managed to make it to the fish auction at Tsukiji back when that was a thing to do as a tourist. Um, and the auction was kind of fun. It was pretty cool to see all the different kinds of fish and how they price them and how they do the auction. And apparently that region of Miyazaki is famous for pole caught katsuo or
Oh
bonito.
wow.
So they actually are
Really?
still line fishing bonito, but they do it in an industrial fashion.
So they're
They
just like
have
yanking them in, yanking them
yeah,
in.
they said when you find the school of bonito and you've got the boat and the boat has actually they spray water onto the surface of the ocean, and apparently the bonito think that it's like a small fish school to come eat. So the bonito
Huh.
all come close to the boat, and then
Huh.
as you're casting in the lines, you're
Wait,
getting
you spray water on the water.
yeah, you spray water from the boat onto the water,
Okay.
and that the surface tension, whatever's happening, the sounds and everything, make the bonito think that there's a school
Gotta remember that.
of dinner. So
Well,
the bonito
yeah.
come to the boat, and then you're just because they're trying to eat whatever they think is at the surface. So they got their mouths open and they just
Idiots.
keep hooking them. And the
I
videos
guess
they'll pull in like
I've
every
seen
three
it.
seconds
Yeah.
they're bringing in a
It's like yanking them
yeah.
in, and I don't understand how they unhook them when they when
There's
they.
no there's
Oh,
no
it's not actually
back hook.
a gotcha. I
It's only
see.
the one hook. It's not it doesn't have the whatever that thing's
It
called, the
doesn't get
tooth.
jammed in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they just
Man, bonito.
fling them over their shoulder, and they go drop right into the storage thing on the boat.
Probably a good workout, right? Man, bonito are
Yeah.
dumb, huh? I guess bonito has never won a Nobel Prize, so that
No. Yeah.
kind of makes sense now.
But so that's a big source of katsuo for katsuo bushi,
Sure.
right? For the dried fish flakes, and then we had a nice lunch, or sorry, breakfast. Actually, breakfast was bonito sashimi and nice little nabe. Actually, fish udon. The noodles are made from
Nice.
fish, which
That
was
sounds
pretty
really
pretty
good.
delicious. That was
Yeah.
fantastic. From there, we went actually to our friend Furusawa and got the full
Nice.
tour of that Taisho era facility, and she did a food pairing. So we had a little mid morning snack
Cool.
pairing with her shochu. And what she did is she put out a shinshu and a koshu, so a new make, and I think a 9-year-old sweet potato shochu, and then she blended the two and made that the third expression.
Huh.
And so you were trying to pair the different food that she had laid out. It was all Nichinan specialties with those three different shochu blends or styles, and that was pretty fun as well.
That's very cool.
And of course, her distillery is just like a time capsule, right? It's pretty great place. And I believe she's currently the only female master brewer distiller in Miyazaki.
Yeah, she is as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
I think that's correct. The only one that that is kind of it's in between is Aki. Sorry, why am I blanking on it? There's another distillery right now up north in Miyazaki that the husband, who is a Toji, I think is kind of in ill health, and his wife has, for all intents and purposes, taken over the distillery. But I don't know what they're calling her or what she's calling herself, honestly. But
right.
I mean, the only active, I would say, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun, and I think especially the female members of the press who were on the tour were pretty jazzed to meet her.
Jazzed about that? Cool.
Yeah,
That's
lots of
very
good
cool.
stories, and always, and she's such a pleasant hostess.
She is. She's lovely. Yeah. She's absolutely
she really
lovely.
is. Yeah, so we had a really nice time there. Then it was actually, I think from there we went to Inoue Distillery,
okay.
which I'd never been to before.
Obisugi.
Yeah, obisugi is their main expression.
Yep.
They had they're about 4 times the size of either any of those other makers. All those other makers are around the same scale, and
Yeah.
then these guys are, I guess, solidly mid pack.
There, it's kind of two distilleries that are together under
Hmm.
under shared ownership.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, but you're right.
yeah, and they process 8,000 kilograms or 8 metric tons of sweet potatoes a day
Yeah,
for
I'm
their
not
for their
surprised.
their production, and so it goes into two separate 4,000 kilogram fermentations in huge 8,000 liter tanks. Um, but yeah,
And they're not
obisugi
even
is
that
kind of
big by Miyazaki standards, right?
that's right, that's right. Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you
they're
guys go to
dropping the.
Kirishima, or they
We
weren't part of
we
the
did
program?
not.
Oh,
They
okay.
weren't part of the program. Yeah, I still have never been there. I feel like
Oh,
that's a
okay.
little blind spot in my
Well,
education.
just
Yeah.
take everything at Obisugi and multiply it by 6,000, and you're kind
Right.
of in the realm.
Yeah. No. I was commenting on the tour that I was like, well, I have been to an Asahi beer factory, so probably I've pretty much seen Kirishima. It's
Yep.
just something at industrial
It is
scale. Yeah.
very clinical. It's very clean. It's
Yeah.
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 It's
Um,
paint by numbers.
but sort of the curveball for me, I didn't realize this. I had heard that somebody was doing something like this. I didn't realize it was them. They've actually got a sturgeon farm adjacent to the distillery, and they are
Oh,
making their own caviar.
okay. They're doing that.
Yeah, apparently it had been a conversation back in the Soviet era. Some Russians had asked or had approached, I don't know if it was Miyazaki or Inoue directly, I don't know what the connections were, but they had started going down the path of making caviar. And originally they thought that the sturgeon would just eat the shochu'kasu, right?
Hmm.
The trimmings from the sweet potatoes as they're processing them. And it turns out that's not sturgeon food. So they had to
Who would have thought?
recalculate their they had to
They couldn't have
recalculate their
tried that
diet.
in Russia before, giving that a spin over here. Huh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but they've got over 2,000 fish,
Hmm.
um, and it was pretty impressive. I'd never
So
seen a
what do they
sturgeon up
eat?
close before.
Do you know?
That was unclear to me.
The
Yeah, I
essence.
didn't. They actually had these headsets. There's a simultaneous or a consecutive translator or simultaneous translator, right? So you'd wear a headset as the translator is following the speaker,
Okay.
and so you could follow along. But I just used the trip as an opportunity to practice my Japanese listening. So, but I did miss that part of it because we were outdoors. There's like these big machines that are circulating the water, so it was a little bit noisy. So I couldn't actually
Sure. Yeah.
hear about their diet and that sort of thing. But
Can only imagine. Fish farms are kind of
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
How'd
But
it
the caviar
smell?
was good, and it
I
actually
bet.
it went quite nicely. They make a barrel aged date shochu,
Yep.
and then they
Yeah, I've had
make
that a bunch of
their
times.
the
They
obisugi.
had that at Habespi for a long time. I
Oh, did
always
they?
had a bottle of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a barrel aged date shochu. Pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Like almost like fruit brandy is almost how I describe it.
It's
Right.
very raisiny. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
And then yeah, then they had the obisugi genshu, so the undiluted expression of obisugi, and that was actually quite a nice drink, and I thought that went quite well with the caviar. So
Yeah.
it is the first time I've ever been served caviar at a shochu distillery, so that was pretty cool.
That has to be an absolute first. I've nobody has ever mentioned that to me. I don't know many people who've had that experience. And Chris brings up a great point. Chris over on YouTube, and I've been thinking about this and waiting until the end to make this point. We talk about terroir all the time, and terroir, of course, involves people. It involves place. It involves everything. It's the water. It's the ingredients. It's the culture. But one thing that we don't often think about is the air, and what is in the air. Of course, there's a lot of wild fermentations. There's a lot of open fermentations in the shochu and awamori world, and
Mhm.
so naturally we need to think about what's in the air. And adjacent businesses, you've mentioned a sturgeon farm. You mentioned the pickle factory. Hey, it
Yeah.
maybe it is part of the conversation. We talk about brininess in shochu and awamori as well, and that's naturally
Mhm.
coming from the coast.
Yep.
It is something that maybe we need to add to the discussion. What do you think
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Some places, for example, like Ochi, also in Miyazaki, which we didn't visit on this trip, but his facility is basically out in the middle of farmland along a river,
Yeah.
right? But he's not near other businesses that could be, you know, changing the air.
Not
But
really. Yeah.
Furusawa is right down in the middle of Odotsu village. There's a shochu distillery up the street. She's a what stone's throw from the mouth of the Odotsu River. She's less than a half kilometer from the Pacific Ocean, and
Right.
she's got some acidity in her spirits.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's definitely something going on there. Then you've got the Sturgeon Farm next to the.
Yeah.
Oh,
I had totally forgotten about that. I had heard of it. I have never seen that farm before, but somebody had mentioned it at one point. I've never heard of having a caviar pairing. I think that's incredibly decadent.
That was, yeah.
It was good with the sweet potato shochu.
I thought it was. I like the way that they went together. I haven't had a lot of caviar in my life, so I can't really say whether it's a good caviar or not.
That myself.
No, but yeah, I enjoyed that part of the trip, and then it was that was basically we were finished by lunch with the distilleries, and then we had a really nice lunch in a historic building near one of the historic castle towns in Miyazaki, and that was a really nice lunch as well, like kind of a kaiseki style set lunch. And then after that was a tour of the castle, and then we got to go. Have you heard of this? For me, this was the most fun on the tour. There is a drinking game in Miyazaki that involves bows and arrows.
I don't think I've seen it or heard of it.
Yeah, this is. Let me see if I can find my. I do apologize for the. Let me find the.
A drinking game with bows and arrows. This doesn't sound pleasant.
Sorry, I could run to the other room where I have my printed thing. Let's see.
Hopefully somebody in the gallery knows where we're going with this, but it hasn't come up, and I've been to many a nomikai in Miyazaki in my day.
Yeah,
nobody ever whipped out
It's really sort of a Nichinan thing. I'll be right back. I apologize for the dead air. You can talk.
No worries. I'm gonna keep on thinking about the whole terroir thing. Especially with sweet potato shochu, we talk about the ashiness in the soil, because naturally the ash is carried with the prevailing winds and lands in the soil. The sweet potatoes are they germinate and gestate in that ashy soil. So that's certainly part of the terroir. What about this ashiness being carried by the wind into the fermentation? So that's not a neighboring business as Chris was talking about, but it certainly does evoke the question. It does bring up the conversation that what's traveling on the prevailing winds is going to necessarily interact with these open fermentations. So it's another wrinkle, another dimension to the whole terroir story.
Yeah, that's been an interesting conversation I've been having with several people over the last few weeks. Is terroir versus regionality, and I think it's a key consideration.
Sure.
A purist would argue that terroir exists in the raw ingredients and not in the drink itself. So the terroir is in the grapes, and in the case that you were describing, the terroir would be in the sweet potatoes. Right, it's a unique sense of place in those specific potatoes, versus regionality, which would be how your local regional style is made. Right, and it's an interesting way to kind of try to bifurcate that, and have, because the regionality would be the expression of those particular makers, that particular drink, where the terroir would be the ingredient itself. I don't know where I've settled on that, but that kind of makes sense to me.
That's interesting. It's different from where we landed on a Sake on Air podcast with where not the etymology, but the considerations behind that word in French, where it originated, and how that is expressed in the understanding of wine, and that was a different understanding of terroir. So it's interesting. We got two different ends of the spectrum there. So it might be good to go and watch.
I listened to
that one.
I had listened to that episode. I should revisit it because my thinking's probably going to involve me. I'm just absorbing. I don't have a strong opinion necessarily, but I've had several people express it to me in that way recently. So actually, Jessica, who was on the tour, she remembered Shihan Mato is the name of this drinking game. Now, in Miyazaki,
thank you, Jessica.
They use short bows rather than the Japanese long bow. Well, the top of the bow is still quite long, but the bottom is truncated, and that's because typically the samurai would be kneeling or sitting and firing. And so what the drinking game evolved to is there's a target, and there's a certain distance that you have to be from the target. And these are actually really, really long arrows. They were pretty fun to play with. I hadn't shot bow and arrow in a long time, but archery is a pretty cool sport, I think. And I think I have a new Japanese hobby with this Shihan Mato. I just need to figure out where my local club is here in Fukuoka. But basically, you've got to hit this target, and if you miss the target, you have to take a drink.
Of course.
So the goal obviously is to hit the target often enough that you don't get sloppy. But of course, alcohol at the beginning of the experience will help calm you. So a lot of the players claim that their participants claim that they get better before they get worse. But there was this great old archival video footage of one of the Matsuri in Nichinan where they had where these guys are coming in the morning with like their longbows and their arrows over their shoulder with an ishobin of shochu.
Oh, jeez.
And by the end of the afternoon, after they've competed, they're all just falling down sloppy, happy, drunk.
What is on the end of these arrows? Can I just ask?
It's a legit metal tip. This is a.
Oh boy, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're all lined up. You're all lined up facing the targets, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully there's nobody down by the targets. Although one of the videos,
it's not like lobbing it back and forth across a drinking table. I got you. You're you're outside with a bit of space.
or you're inside. It was actually one of the videos was actually like it looked like inside somebody's house or inside some sort of communal space, and they had set up the targets at the long end of the room. And there's like a person standing not far from the target, like encouraging the guy to shoot the arrows.
Oh, jeez, it's only a flesh wound.
Yeah, oh, and actually, I thought we acquitted ourselves quite well when we got to try it. Now we weren't actually drinking as we were shooting, but we had a couple of bullseyes, and a number of us got it into the circle. And they beat the drum every time you hit the circle. So it was a good time. So.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. And that was in the Obi Castle town.
Okay.
Which is a nice place to visit in Miyazaki if you ever have the chance. Have you been there, Christopher? Do you know?
I have not. No.
Yeah. I would put this on our agenda next time we're down there because I want to go shoot more arrows. We'll bring some. we'll bring some shochu and make sure we have a driver.
Love it. Love it.
And then we finished the tour actually at Udo Shrine, which shockingly I had never been to.
I haven't been either. I don't.
Udo Jingu is it's along the coast, and it's actually the shrine itself is hidden into like a carved out cave.
Okay.
It's a really, really fascinating area right along in the Miyazaki coast. It's all the rocky coastline and it was really wavy. We had these huge waves rolling in, and the ocean spray and everything, and then the shrine's up about 10-15 meters maybe above that, and then tucked back into this almost cave-like space. And they have this thing where they have those sacred ropes that they sometimes will tie around sacred trees. They have that around a rock, a sacred rock apparently, and in the rock, in the top of the rock, there's like a little bowl, like that's been weathered out, and you throw these stones, and if you get it into that carved out hole inside the rope, then it's good fortune. Apparently it's a place where hopeful lovers go to try to capture their sweetheart, kind of place. So you saw lots of young people cheering for each other to find true love by putting the rock in the hole. So.
Just use the rope. Go lasso that bastard. Hit him.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
really fun. I liked the cultural uh, things that were added along with the distillery visits. Gave a nice perspective of Miyazaki, like local culture and history, and I'm a sucker for that stuff. So
Yeah,
really
it's good
enjoyed
when
it.
it's done well. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah, but
If they
I
give you
was
enough time to think, that's the
yeah,
important point. And
yeah. And you
file
and I,
stories if you're a journalist.
right? Yeah, there was no. I don't think there was any time for that on that. But it was a very quick trip, and I was just dead on my feet by the time I got back to the airport, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And you and I spoke actually while I was in the airport, and I don't know how lucid I was. I was pretty gassed, but got
Yeah,
a good night's sleep.
you were tired. Um, yeah, well,
Yep.
that sounds like they did a good job. So glad you had a good time, and makes me want to get back to Miyazaki again. And there's lots of things that we're waiting to do down there. I mean, we still haven't been to the cooperage, which we've
Hmm.
tried a couple of times and swung and missed. We'll
Yep.
get it right eventually.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So go
but
ahead.
fun trip. Met some good people. Jessica
Good.
among them. We had a nice couple of nice conversations. Whiskey Richard from Communication was there,
Cool. Cool.
who had never met in person. We've obviously zoomed with him in the
Yeah, we've
past, but
talked to him before.
yeah, but really good guy. We had a nice time. Um, so yeah, it's good to put actually spend time with some of these folks that I've interacted with on social media and that sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that's great that they've had a really cool experience involving shochu. So
Yeah,
yeah, hopefully they spread the good word. Um,
absolutely.
well, I I'm glad that there are these tours happening. I wish they were happening around the clock, like around all year long. They seem to be grouped up in the fall, which makes sense for the harvest, but there are other
Hmm.
harvests, so hopefully we can get them going in the spring too. When
Yeah.
I think it would be also be good to get out there.
Hmm.
But they do a lot of the activity tends to be in like October, November, December for a lot of these events. I don't know what is that. Why do they always get planned when everybody's busy making stuff? I mean, it is because they're busy making stuff, but
Right.
like
'Cause
that's
an
like the
idle
worst time
distillery
to
is
go
not that
and
interesting.
bother. That's very
Yeah.
true, but it is the worst time to bother somebody who makes the stuff. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Especially the smaller makers, right?
Mm,
The bigger guys can
they can
you know
handle it.
give you a little tour, but
Yeah, it's
um,
true.
yeah, actually, an interesting idea came up. Was I think we might want to try to not this year, obviously, because it's in 4 days, but next year, assuming it's happening, is maybe go down to Okinawa for
For
November
Awamori Day
1st. Yeah, maybe bring along a ragtag crew
contingent.
of eager journalists and show them
Yeah, it
the
might
wonders
also
of
be good. I
Awamori.
mean, if Shimazake Festa is on in April, that could be good too.
Oh
Because
yeah.
then you got everybody like together in one place, and
Hmm.
you can really check out the scene, and
And that's sooner,
it's
which is
not
even
too
better.
hot down there. True.
Yeah,
Maybe we do both.
nice, cool.
So
All right.
speaking of Miyazaki, and it's time
Yeah.
for us to, talk about Shochu Rakuen. The second
Yep.
one in set A is made by Shoro, which is from Miyazaki Shoro, of course, makers of the very popular Colorful, and this is a 30% ABV expression made with rice koji and sweet potatoes. My understanding is that it's a couple of very purple sweet potatoes.
Okay.
I think like let me put this on here in the correct way. If you look at the where did I put the little book? As we showed last week, it comes with this little pairing booklet, and it talks about the drink. It talks about a particular dish that you're supposed to make to pair it with. And this one is made with Tama Akane and Murasaki Masari, which is two different types of, I think we would call it purple sweet potato. And the way that it's recommended is to be enjoyed mizuwari, so over ice with some extra water in there. Here's the first aroma. Oh yeah, it's super. Oh yeah, absolutely purple.
Hmm.
I mean, if purple has a smell, this is the smell. This is what purple. This is the aroma purple.
Yeah, smell the purple
Oh wow.
for sure.
So lots of very fruity, nearly like a grape like aroma.
Hmm.
There's grapes in here, and it's funny because the what you would consider a traditional sweet potato is hiding in there, but I bet it takes a little while for it to kind of stretch and get out of the bottle. 30% ABV, like I said, and this one is recommended to be consumed alongside a dish that it's kind of interesting because they're just like, just go to the convenience store and grab some sumibiyaki chicken or pork or whatever, right? So it's a very simple. Then you're gonna prepare it and plate it this way, and it makes sense. I think the earthiness and sweetness on this are gonna pair really nicely with something that has that nice charcoal grilling going on.
You know, they had a lot of that in the souvenir shops in the airport because that's a Miyazaki specialty, and of course I didn't bring any home, so now I'm regretting it.
Souvenirs. I mean, my phone needs to have an app on it that is GPS located that says, "Hey, dumbass, you're clearly about to travel. Have you gotten presents for these 6 people who you always need a present for, and then you regret not having one for when you get back home?" And I don't know why that's not a thing, because they would make so much more money if we had these souvenir reminders. And I mean, yes, I could be more responsible and write this stuff down, but that's not how I roll.
There's an app for that, right?
There should be an app for this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was fixated on the fish udon, so that's what I ended up bringing back because I thought that was a pretty cool thing, the fish noodle
Yeah, sure.
udon.
That sounds really good. I love the idea of I love udon. I love the idea of the extra character there. Maya just made a helpful reminder here that tama akane is more orange than purple, so this is a little bit of a rainbow blend.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's colorful.
It is very colorful. Yep. And I think this would also work with sparkling water.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's pretty interesting. Wow. I like it. That was good.
Yeah.
Do you have any other?
Very cool drink. I do have a newly opened. I've been, and it'll make a lot of sense when
That's long too.
the next podcast episode comes out. But I've been drinking this. So this is Ichigo Hita Zen Koji. So it's 100% koji saccharide barley, made from in the Hita Distillery, which is one of
Up in the mountain.
Ichigo's.
Yeah.
Hita's an onsen village in southern Oita, on the border with Kumamoto, and beautiful little town, actually, great resorts and that sort of thing. But this was the distillery was actually a former Nika factory,
Right.
that Oita, that Sanwa Shurui acquired and started making shochu. They got beautiful column stills, and it's a really, really pretty facility. They got a nice tasting
gorgeous.
room.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a visit. I mean, the corporate headquarters are much more just doing business, right? They got huge production capacity there as well. But if you wanted actually a nice tour of a distillery, I would say that the Hita Distillery is a nice.
Yeah, you're gonna need a
nice
car.
option.
I guess you're gonna need a car for both of those places. But yeah, the Hita one up in the hills it's gorgeous. It's a really beautiful place.
Yeah, but you can. I mean, you can get the Hita by train, and then it's not that far a taxi ride from
That's
downtown
true.
to the
True.
distillery.
I had a lift the last time I was there, so not a LYFT. Somebody did actually drive me, so I don't really remember how far it was.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. No, it's not a bad trip, but that's a nice facility. So I'd had this before, but I hadn't had it in a while. So I picked up a bottle recently, and what I've been doing actually is getting different kinds of Japanese citrus and adding garnishes to shochu soda. So basically
That's
making
interesting.
eyeballs with fruit garnishes.
Great idea.
And so these light vacuum distilled expressions tend to play very well with citrus. So that's what I've been playing around with. So that's been my newly opened. How about you, Christopher?
I'm on the Kokuto bent right now.
Nice.
Ryugu, yeah,
Oh, good
which
stuff.
fortunately I can get nearby. It's at Seijo Ishii most of the time. 30% ABV, really good, super small batch Kokuto sugar
Hmm.
shochu made by Tomita down
Yeah,
on the main island, Amami Oshima.
that's great that you can get that nearby. I don't see that very often around me.
Yeah, I'm surprised. That one Seijo Ishii does not have a very wide selection, literally or figuratively, but they have Junkuro and they have Ryugu, and they have a couple of okay, like decent Awamori from Ishikawa Distillery.
Nice.
So it's like, hey, all right, not horrible. They could do better with a better. They could have some real tequila and an actual rum that's not made by one of the big players. But
Hmm.
otherwise, they're doing okay, I'd say. And that's where I get all of my Mino stouts. So I like
Ah,
that place.
yes. Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So we're okay. We're doing well on timing here. Let's. I think it's fair to say we can sort of close it out. Anything coming up that we will have? I guess our next. You said the next. The podcast is not next. Is it next Monday? It is next Monday.
It is. Yeah, there'll be a new episode Monday. Is that right?
Well, shoot. We better record that then, huh? Okay.
No, that's recorded.
That one's done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. Okay, then
Yeah,
we're gonna record another one today. That's why I'm thinking that.
that's
Okay.
right. Yeah, we're recording today for in a couple of weeks.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody out there, thank you very
Yeah.
much for tuning in again. It's been fun, and yeah, I think we're all craving a trip to Miyazaki Prefecture. I myself will be down in Kagoshima from tomorrow, so I think if I'm on Shochu'sday next week, I will be reporting from down there. And until then, let's see which glass should I take. To everybody out there in Shochu'sday land around the world, from both of us here in Japan, a very, 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 very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.